Hello, uh, fellow people of the world. Today I'm going to be starting a new thing on my channel. You guys might not know about me because 99% of my channel is gaming, me ranting, that's about it. But I really like reading, and I really like dinosaurs. So one of my all-time favorite books and movies is Jurassic Park, any of them. All of them are my favorite. Jurassic Park 1, 2, 3, and Jurassic World 1 and 2. And in counting, they are filming number 3. I love all of them. They've always appealed to me. I have a bunch of the Jurassic Park figurines, mostly from Jurassic World. I have a die-cast Jeep from Jurassic Park, which is up on my collector's shelf. But today we're going to be reading Jurassic Park: The Lost World, which, if you didn't know, is the second movie and the second book. And if you guys enjoy me reading on the channel, we have other books that I can read. I don't have a lot. I have a few. I can read The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Peter Pan, it's called The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. I usually just call it Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The Invisible Man, The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, which is basically the same as The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn. A Tale of Two Cities, and The Prince and the Pauper. If I jumped, it's because we have a really bad storm going on right now in Canada. Not like more in the Alberta area in Canada, but it's freaking terrifying. Lightning, thunder. I swear, it felt like there was like a freaking blast in the middle of the trailer park. So I thought now's the best time of any to start reading, right? Other than The Prince and the Pauper, we have The Hobbit, Hardy Boys 9, 10, 14, and 13. Kind of did that backwards. We also have Acting for Young Actors, The Ultimate Teen Guide. That's mostly for me, because I'm an aspiring actor. I would like to be an actor when I get older. But I can always read that too, for you guys. Without further ado, let's begin. We are going to read The Lost World. If I didn't say already, each video will be one chapter of the book. Not a huge talking like the beginning of this. I was just saying what we're going to start on the channel. Mostly because gaming is getting a little exhausting due to COVID. I've spent all of my time gaming and working on schoolwork, of course, otherwise I'm going to fail. And you don't want me to fail. But most of my time has been spent on gaming, and I can't sit in front of a screen and play video games for videos anymore. It's exhausting. So we're going to start this book, part of my segment of my channel. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Life at the Edge of Chaos. The Santa Fe Institute was housed in a series of buildings on Canyon Road, which had formerly been a convent, and the Institute's seminars were held in a room which had served as a chapel. Now, standing at the podium, with a shaft of sunlight shining down on him, Ian Malcolm paused dramatically before continuing his lecture. Malcolm was 40 years old, and a familiar figure at the Institute. He had been one of the early pioneers in chaos theory, but his promising career had been disrupted by a severe injury during a trip to Costa Rica. Malcolm had, in fact, been reported dead in several newscasts. I was sorry to cut short the celebrations in mathematics departments around the country, he later said, but it turned out I was only slightly dead. The surgeons have done wonders, as they will be the first to tell you, so now I am back, in my next iteration, you might say. Dressed entirely in black, leaning on a cane, Malcolm gave the impression of severity. He was known within the Institute for his unconventional analysis and his tendency to, I don't like that word, pessimism. His talk that August, entitled Life at the Edge of Chaos, was typical of his thinking. In it, Malcolm presented his analysis of chaos theory as it applied to evolution. He could not have wished for a more knowledgeable audience. Santa Fe Institute had been formed in the mid-1980s by a group of scientists interested in the implications of chaos theory. The scientists came from many fields: physics, economics, biology, computer science, What they had in common was a belief that the complexity of the world concealed an underlying order which had previously eluded science, and which would be revealed by chaos theory, now known as complexity theory. In the words of one, complexity theory was the science of the 21st century. The Institute had explored the behavior of a great variety of complex systems, corporations in the marketplace, neurons in the human brain, enzyme cascades with a single cell, the group behavior of migratory birds, systems so complex that it had not been possible to study. Oh, 5 minutes already. Okay. Oh, I realize I probably shouldn't have paused there. Systems so complex that it had not been possible to study them before the advent of the computer. The research was new, and the findings were surprising. It did not take long before the scientists began to notice that complex systems showed certain common behaviors. They started to think of these behaviors as characteristic of all complex systems. They realized that these behaviors could not be explained by analyzing the components of the systems. The time-honored scientific approach of reductionism, taking the watch apart to see how it worked, didn't get you anywhere with complex systems, because the interesting behavior seemed to arise from the spontaneous interaction of the components. The behavior wasn't planned or directed. It just happened. Such behavior was therefore called self-organizing. Of the self-organizing behaviors, Ian Malcolm said, two are of particular interest to the study of evolution. One is adaptation. We see it everywhere. Corporations adapt to the marketplace, brain cells adapt to signal traffic, the immune system adapts to infection, animals adapt to their food supply. We have come to think that the ability to adapt is characteristic of complex systems, and may be one reason why evolution seems to lead toward more complex organisms. He shifted at the podium, transferring his weight onto his cane. But, even more important, he said, is the way complex systems seem to strike a balance between the need for order and the imperative to change. Complex systems tend to locate themselves at a place we call the edge of chaos. We imagine the edge of chaos as a place where there is enough innovation to keep a living system vibrant, and enough stability to keep it from collapsing into anarchy. It is a zone of conflict and upheaval where the old and the new are constantly at war. Finding the balance point must be a delicate matter. If a living system drifts too close, it risks falling over into incoherence and dissolution. But if the system moves too far away from the edge, it becomes rigid, frozen, totalitarian. Both conditions lead to extinction. Too much change is as destructive as too little. Only at the edge of chaos can complex systems flourish. He paused. And by implication, extinction is the inevitable result of one or the other strategy. Too much change or too little. In the audience, heads were nodding. This is familiar thinking to most of the researchers present. Indeed, the concept of the edge of chaos was very nearly dogma at the Santa Fe Institute. Unfortunately, Malcolm continued, the gap between this theoretical construct and the fact of extinction is vast. We have no way to know if our thinking is correct. The fossil record can tell us that an animal became extinct at a certain time, but not why. Computer simulations are of limited value, nor can we perform experiments on living organisms. Thus, we are obliged to admit that extinction, untestable, unsuited for experiment, may not be a scientific subject at all. And this may explain why the subject has been embroiled in the most intense religious and political controversy. I would remind you that there is no religious debate about Avogadro's number or Planck's constant, or the functions of the pancreas, but about extinction. Oh, that was a thunder. If I haven't said already, there's a big storm going on in Alberta right now. It's crazy. Where was I? But about extinction. There has been perpetual controversy for 200 years, and I wonder how it is to be solved. If yes, what is it? At the back of the room, a hand had gone up, waving impatiently. Malcolm frowned, visibly annoyed. The tradition at the Institute was that questions were held until the presentation ended. It was poor form to interrupt the speaker. You had a question? Malcolm said. From the back of the room, a young man in his early 30s stood. Actually, the man said, an observation. The speaker was dark and thin, dressed in khaki shirt and shorts. Precise in his movements and manner, Malcolm recognized him as a paleontologist from Berkeley named Levine, who was spending the summer at the Institute. Malcolm had never spoken to him, but he knew his reputation. Levine was generally agreed to the best paleobiologist of his generation, perhaps the best in the world, but most people at the Institute disliked him, finding him pompous and arrogant. I agree, Levine continued, that the fossil record is not helpful in addressing extinction, particularly if your thesis is that behavior is the cause of extinction. Because bones don't tell us much about the behavior, but I disagree that your behavioral thesis is untestable. In point of fact, it implies an outcome, although perhaps you haven't yet thought of it. The room was silent. At the podium, Malcolm frowned. The eminent mathematician was not accustomed to being told. He had not thought through his ideas. What's your point? He said. Levine appeared indifferent to the tension in the room. Just this, he said. During the Cretaceous dinosauria were widely distributed across the planet. We have found their remains on every continent and in every climatic zone, even in the Antarctic. Now, if their extinction was really the result of their behavior and not the consequence of a catastrophe or a disease or a change in plant life or any of the other broad-scale explanations that have been proposed, then it seems to me highly unlikely that they all change their behavior at the same time, everywhere. And that in turn means that there may well be some remnants of these animals still alive on the earth. Why couldn't you look for them? You could, Malcolm said coldly, if that amused you, and if you had no more compelling use for your time. No, Levine said earnestly. I'm quite serious. What if the dinosaurs did not become extinct? What if they still exist somewhere in an isolated spot on the planet? You're talking about a lost world, Malcolm said, and heads in the room nodded knowingly. Scientists at the Institute had developed a shorthand for referring to common evolutionary scenarios. They spoke of the field of bullets, the gambler's ruin, the game of life, the lost world, the red queen, and the black noise. These were all defined ways of thinking about evolution, but they were all... No, Levine said stubbornly. I'm speaking literally. Then you're badly deluded, Malcolm said with a dismissive wave of his hand. He turned away from the audience and walked slowly to the blackboard. Now, if we consider the implications of the edge of chaos, we may begin by asking ourselves what is the minimal unit of life. Most contemporary definitions of life would include the presence of DNA, but there are two examples which suggest to us that this definition is too narrow. If you consider viruses and so-called prions, it is clear that life may in fact exist without DNA. At the back of the room, Levine stared for a moment, then reluctantly he sat down and began to make notes. And that is chapter 1 I hope you guys enjoyed that. I tried to make the voices of what I think they would sound like. I know it might have taken a while. I was a couple words, and a couple times I paused, just trying to figure out a word. But that was chapter 1. I will see you guys again in chapter 2. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you like this video, because it's free, and it would really help me out, and then you guys get to enjoy more of this content. We are currently sitting at 120, holy crap, habanero, some hot sauce. We're sitting at 129 subscribers, and the reason I'm saying if you enjoy what my content, that you should subscribe, is because I made a how to play the Jumanji board game video, my very first video, at Christmas time. It got around 17,000 views, if I'm correct, and no new subscribers. So if you enjoy them or my content, just please subscribe. It's free, and you get more of it. So I hope you guys have a great day. Chapter 2 is coming soon. Peace, guys.